Now, this is one of those franchises where everybody's rankings are different. There's other franchises like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, where the top 2 or 3 usually fall in a pretty predictable order. But this franchise is so beloved that there's probably about 7 or 8 movies in this series that I've seen ranked number 1 or number 2 or number 3. So it's really subjective, really up to the individual. So I'm just going to give my opinions right now. In the comments, please give your comments. If you enjoy this video, please subscribe as well. So let's go with number 12 here. Now, this is going to be unpopular rank this movie last because we've seen the resurgence. We've seen the second viewings, the second appraisals of Friday 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. There's been a new take on this movie because when it first came out, nobody liked this movie. But in recent years, all the New Beginning fans have started taking over Reddit, taking over Facebook, all the Jason groups, the Friday 13th Reddit, all the New Beginning fans now proudly displaying their love and their fandom for A New Beginning. Has Vic joined the bandwagon? Hell no. I do not think this movie deserves a second appraisal. I feel like we were right the first time. This is not a good movie. It's not a good slasher movie, not a good horror movie, and especially not a good Jason movie because Jason's not in the damn movie. Now, okay, let's think about this movie for a second. Final chapter had come and gone. Supposedly the last movie in the franchise, but it made just enough money that them at Paramount were like, hey, listen, I know we said final chapter, but screw it. Let's keep the series going. Let's come back with part 5. I dig it. Let's do that. Let's come back with the franchise. Let's bring back Crystal Lake. Let's bring back the whole slasher feel. Let's bring back the same model. But they said, let's not bring back Jason. Let's bring an imposter. Let's throw in a copycat killer in the form of Roy Burns. Now, not only has the movie gotten a second appraisal, but there's been a new appraisal of Roy Burns. I've seen lists where they're ranking Jasons, all the Jason Voorhees. They just go ahead and throw Roy Burns right on the Jason list as if he just fits in perfectly. And I disagree completely. To me, Roy Burns is just a faceless killer. I think his motivation was stupid. The fact that in this movie, he doesn't actually kill the man, or at least we don't see the kill of him killing the guy who's actually responsible for his son dying. I mean, Victor killed Joey. Why isn't Victor being held responsible here? I don't understand. He should have just killed Victor, and that would have taken care of the entire revenge motif, the revenge plot. But instead, he's killing everybody in this damn town. People who had nothing to do with his son's killing. Like, why is he killing Demon? Why is Demon a victim here? Demon and his girlfriend. They just innocently wanted to enjoy their enchiladas. They wanted to come up with a new hit R&B song. I mean, that's going to be one of the top hit songs in the 80s. But no. Killed way before their time. Demon, my favorite character in this movie. But that said, okay, does the movie have some qualities? Can I understand why people like this movie a lot? Okay, there's some positives here. One of the positives is Reggie the Reckless. Great protagonist. Love Reggie. Fastest person to ever run from the kill in the entire series. When Reggie takes off towards the end of the movie running through the woods, I'm like, holy cow. I don't care if Jason is running top speed towards Reggie. Nobody is catching Reggie the Reckless in this movie. Pam, kind of lackluster final girl, if you want to call her that. Tommy Jarvis, this interpretation of Tommy Jarvis, my absolute least favorite interpretation of Tommy Jarvis. Tommy Jarvis goes to this movie basically quiet, very reserved in his head. Don't really know what he's about because they're trying to play on the idea that maybe he is the killer. They're hinting at the idea that maybe the new killer is Tommy Jarvis, which I probably would have liked more. But then there's certain scenes where Tommy Jarvis just becomes John Wick, starts kicking ass, starts beating people's ass, shows all these karate skills he's picked up during his time period, although he's been locked away. So I don't know, but at the end, Tommy Jarvis, confronted with the main person he should be using these karate skills on, which is Jason, just stands there and looks scared until Jason walks a slow path towards him, finally slicing him up. But Tommy Jarvis still alive, will end up helping to save the day. But man, Tommy, where was these John Wick skills when Roy Burns and Jason were right in front of you? The guy right in front of you, you can't take him out. I don't know. Decent kills, I guess. I mean, a lot of them are off screen, but you have very annoying characters. That woman in the woods with her son, probably was it Ethel? Probably a top 3 most annoying character in the series. And then the director was, I guess, previously a porn director, and that does really show in some of these scenes. Excessive sex and nudity, which I know is a really weird complaint for the Friday 13th series, but a little bit over the top. You could see where he was a porn director. I get it. All right, look, guys, if you're a huge New Beginning fan, Let me know in the comments what you love about New Beginning. Why? What am I missing here? Like, I just see bad characters, lackluster Jason at superhuman strength. I mean, barges through the door, breaks through the door as if he's Jason, but I don't know. I felt like the movie was poorly made, poor characters, not enough standout death scenes for me to say the death scenes redeem the movie. Bottom of the bill for me, the last movie in the list, Friday 13th New Beginning. Let's go to the next one. And the next one is going to be Jason Goes to Hell. Now, maybe this suffers the problem that New Beginning had, which was Jason's barely in this movie. I guess, this is a little bit of a step up from New Beginning. You have a little bit of Jason at the beginning and at the end, but I don't know. New Line took over the series. What happened was Sean Cunningham had gotten the rights back. He wanted to work with New Line on Freddy vs. Jason, but Wes Craven had decided to make New Nightmare. So they put Freddy vs. Jason on hold so they could focus on New Nightmare. So in the meantime, Sean Cunningham was like, listen, I don't want the Jason property just to sit here, collect dust. Let's make a new movie. He let a very young director, Adam Marcus, who was like 23 years old, helm this project. Kane Hodder back on board. But is this canon with the Paramount movies? I don't know. I mean, it feels like a whole different universe, to be honest. And Jason's back in the woods, mysteriously, magically appeared back from Manhattan. I guess he swam all the way back from Manhattan. He's gained about 50 pounds, which is okay. I'm cool with a bulky Jason, hair flying all over the place, unkempt Jason. I mean, he's not going to be hitting the nearest hair salon for a haircut, so I get it. Amazing opening scene in Jason Goes to Hell. Finally, the FBI, who the entire series have just been like, hey, 15 murders here, 10 murders here, 12 murders here, just letting Jason do his thing. For years, Jason, at this point, had the body count, the most notorious serial killer in the world, but the government, the FBI, has not taken any action. Finally, they do a sting operation at Crystal Lake, taking out Jason. I love this opening scene. If you show me this opening scene in the movie theater on the first viewing, I'm like, holy shit, this is a new thing. This is fantastic. But where they go from there? Well, we get into a weird body hopping, potentially Evil Dead tie-in, Necronomicon. Again, body hopping. Well, this is not our parents' Friday 13th, and that's okay. It was the 90s now, and they wanted to do something different. They did something different, and what we have, in all honesty, is a pretty decent movie. Just not a good Friday 13th movie, not a good Jason movie. We want to see Jason. We don't want to see Roy Burns. At least Roy Burns is mimicking Jason. This is like just random body hopping people that have nothing to do with Jason. You get there's all this mythology added in about Jason having a sister and a niece and a magical dagger that can take him out. I don't know. It's a decent movie, but it's not what Friday 13th fans are looking for, I don't think. That said, the great thing about this movie, the standout about this movie, is Creighton Duke. Creighton Duke, I can go back and watch the movie just for Creighton Duke because the story is so interesting to me. The idea that he has some mysterious backstory with Jason we don't know about. The fact that he has all this knowledge about how to take on Jason. He's basically has all the mythology in his head as if he went to the public library and just got all this information. So Creighton Duke is like a standout character in the series. So props to him. He elevates the movie big time. The acting, the adult actors are all pretty good. There's no movie in the franchise that I really hate. That's one thing I want to preface with. So even New Beginning, I don't hate that movie. I feel like it's the last movie in the series. But Jason Goes to Hell, decent movie, but has to fall here at number 11. Let's go to number 10. Now, this is going to shock people because there's a lot of choices for number 10 that you go with. This is where I think it gets very, 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 very subjective. But I'm going to go with Friday 13th Part 7, A New Blood. I first saw New Blood, I was probably about 11 years old, at a pizza birthday party at my neighbor's house. At that time, I was so blown away by the whole psychic woman, telepathic woman versus Jason angle, Carrie versus Jason. I was blown away as a kid, and I always had a huge nostalgic bias towards the movie. But on adult viewings, as time has gone on and more repeats, I find myself not really enjoying this movie as much as I did back in the day. Let me get the big positives right out the way. First of all, Jason's look, his makeup, Kane Hodder, amazing. The way his spinal cord and his bones are showing in the back of his body, I love it. Love Jason here. Jason is amazing. Jason's brutality, amazing. Everything with Jason is awesome. But I don't understand the love for Tina. Tina's a bland, main character to me. Kane Hodder once was quoted as saying that he thinks that the one final girl that everybody wants to see come back from his years talking to fans at conventions, he said that everybody wants to see Tina come back. I just don't believe that at all. I feel like there's no emotional connection to Tina. We don't spend enough time with her. The fact that she has some childhood trauma, I get that, but I don't know. I don't have any kind of connection to Tina. I don't think she's even a top 5 final girl in the series. So to me, it's a bland main character, and then her co-star Michael. Again, to me, these are two of the most bland main characters in the series. The most interesting character to me is Melissa. Melissa, who's playing the bad girl who is trying to destroy our would-be romance between Michael and Tina. But to me, is just the fun bad girl who unfortunately has to get her comeuppance and is thrown across the damn room headfirst into a TV. That's the best death scene in the movie. Well, that and the sleeping bag death scene. But again, this is not a movie I hate. I really don't like most of the characters. I find the whole middle part of the movie to be pretty bland. On rewatches, I find myself mostly just wanting to skip ahead to the last 20 minutes. Once it's Tina versus Jason, Carrie versus Jason, the original concept, I'm entertained. I'm cool with it. But let's talk about that ending for a second. Tina's father comes from the bottom of the lake and takes out Jason. Her father, who is framed as a hero at the end, but at the beginning is framed potentially as an abusive husband, abusive alcoholic husband. But I guess Tina misses her father, so she's willing to forgive and forget, even though she did actually kill him at the beginning of the movie. She felt so strong as a kid that she inadvertently killed him. But I don't understand the hero framing of the father. I don't understand the father coming back up in complete human form. He should have been completely decomposed if he's been at the bottom of the water. And none of this makes sense. Was that his ghost? Was that his actual physical body? Once he goes back in the water, is he just gone? Like, can Tina not have someone come to the water then and dig out her father who's down there? I mean, why was the body never found the first time back in the day? Like, there's so many questions there. It's such a dumb ending that I don't understand how that made it through the original first draft of the script. Maybe this is the first draft of the script where these movies are pretty rushed, so maybe, but I don't understand that ending at all. So yeah, anyways, I like Friday the 13th Part 7. For all these movies, we have a deep dive podcast in the archives. So if you want to get some really in the minutia of the details of our reviews, check them out in the archives. But yeah, not the biggest fan in the world of the characters, the ending, kind of a bland movie. You know. All right, next up on the list, I think we're down to number 9. And number 9 for me is going to be Jason X. Jason Goes to Space. Well, I guess we can sort of credit Freddy vs. Jason for this movie once again, because as I said earlier, originally Sean Cunningham really got together with New Line to make Freddy vs. Jason, but they're spinning their wheels for the entire 90s trying to find the right script. So the Jason property is again sitting there on the shelf, and Sean Cunningham once again is like, screw it, let's make some money, let's do something with Jason. He takes a couple ideas from people he knows, and someone pitches Jason in space. And listen, as horror fans, we all think about horror movies when they go to space. We think about Leprechaun, we think about Hellraiser. Usually, when you go to space, you're scratching like the very last remnants of like a respectability in the franchise. Usually, that's a bad sign. So, curious decision, but apparently the first draft, the first script that was written was amazing, and slowly over time, with too many cooks in the kitchen, the script was slowly peeled back, and what was special about it was taken out. A lot of generic things put in. Now the movie itself. I saw this movie, not gonna lie, I was in high school, and in my programming class, where in the back we would sit doing no programming at all. We would just watch bootleg movies. Somebody had download all the movies illegally, and Jason X was there in programming class about 3 or 4 months before it came to theaters. So I'm like, what the hell? This movie's not even in theaters. It's already online to watch. So I watched the bootleg version and was unimpressed. And then later on watched it on DVD. If you were around the 90s, the Friday 13th message board, which was fantastic back in the day, so much hype for Jason X. The hype as a 13, 14-year-old was so much that, of course, I was let down when I saw the movie. Now, what you have to do with this movie basically is just treat it again, kind of similar to Jason Goes to Hell. You have to treat it as its own standalone thing. It's really not going to give you the Friday 13th feel, but it gives you more of an Alien feel. Alien, if Alien was a terrible movie with terrible acting, terrible execution, and everything terrible. So it's a terrible version of Alien, basically, or Aliens, I should say, Aliens specifically. Actually, it resembles more Leprechaun in space than it does Aliens. But fun movie. Kane Hodder, fantastic as Jason. Some fun death scenes. My favorite thing is not even a death scene, but the guy getting stabbed and then being like, "So take more than that to put this old dog down." Stabbed again. Yep, that ought to do it. I mean, come on. Someone falling on a big spike thing, and the girl saying he's screwed. There's some fun stuff there. There's some good lines. This movie can be appreciated watching it with a group of friends, Friday night. Turn on Jason X, you'll have a fun time. So again, not a movie that I hate. Uber Jason, fantastic. But if you were going to show someone a Friday 13th movie to give them the Friday 13th vibe, you certainly just you wouldn't think of Jason X. So okay, so now this is where we get into a super hot take, because Friday 13th is one of the few franchises where the original movie is not really held in the highest regard. You look at the Halloween series, the initial Halloween is almost always going to be number one on everybody's list. Nightmare on Elm Street, the original is almost always going to be number one, with some people maybe sometimes putting Dream Warriors at number one. But if you get to Friday 13th, and it's all over the place. The original has slowly lost popularity over time because the series has become so synonymous with Jason. It's the Jason series. Jason's a star. So people are surprised sometimes when they do their first viewing of the series to go back to the first one and find that Jason's not really in the first movie. It's his mom, Pamela Voorhees. I mean, you think about the Scream question at the beginning of Scream, where the killer is asking Drew Barrymore, like, who's the killer on Friday 13th? Jason, Jason, Jason. That's wrong. It's Pamela Voorhees. That's because we just, as a culture, we think of Jason Friday 13th. So this first movie with Pamela Voorhees, which plays more of a whodunit. We see feet walking, we see hands, we see killer point of view. So it's played more of a mystery. And I think that's perfectly fine. I think that a good slasher mystery, we all love that. The original Scream was a fantastic mystery movie in terms of who the killer was. The one problem with the original Friday 13th is that if you're going to reveal the killer at the end, and in this case it was Pamela Voorhees, just somewhere throughout the movie, in the beginning, middle, somewhere, please just put them in the background. Have them, they don't have to say anything. Maybe they have one or two lines. They don't have to have a big role, but you just want that reveal to be like, oh, that's the cook from earlier in the movie. Oh, she was in the background earlier. Oh, look how she was eavesdropping on the conversation. Give us something so that on the rewatch you can go back and be like, oh, this was brilliant. This was planned. But this is such the killer comes out of nowhere whodunit that it kills the whole whodunit thing. You couldn't possibly guess when watching the movie. You couldn't guess who the killer was because they're not even on screen ever until this last part of the movie. So it fails as a whodunit. There's some decent death scenes. Tom Savini doing the Kevin Bacon death scene, which shows up in the Prowler and Friday 13th Part 4. They always in the series go back to the Kevin Bacon death scene. I will say that Alice is, again, for me, not a top female protagonist in the series. I feel like she gets a lot of love, and I get it, but I think there's a good amount of better final girls in this series than Alice in terms of her character. But so yeah, I'm just not that impressed with the original Friday 13th. Think it's a pretty good movie, rewatchable. My favorite character was actually Annie. I felt like Annie was so likable in her short time on screen that I would love her to be the final girl instead of Alice, but it just wasn't to be. They were going for the old Janet Leigh psycho, introduce the main character and kill her off early. So Annie was a victim of that. All right, let's go next on the list. It seems kind of almost silly and sacrilegious that I put Friday 13th right there, and now next on the list is Jason Takes Manhattan. Yes, Jason Takes a Cruise being ranked higher than the original Friday 13th. How could this be, Vic? How could you put the silly, goofy Jason Takes Manhattan, which can't even pay off its own title? He doesn't take Manhattan. He's only in Manhattan for 20 minutes. Really, it's not even Manhattan. It's basically Vancouver, Canada. So how the hell can we rank Jason Takes Manhattan this high? Simple. I think that in terms of cheesy Jason, because there's a separation there. There's Friday the 13th movies in the series that I would say are actually going for legitimate scares, and there are ones that are really trying to personify the cheesy 80s horror aesthetic. A cheesy feel, goofy feel, not being taken seriously. I think Jason Takes Manhattan is probably the best of those movies. It's like that, Jason X, really just farcical, comical versions of Jason. Um, I don't know. On rewatches, like New Blood for me has gone down, but this movie's gone up on rewatches. I don't know why. There's just something so funny to me about Jason Ramley getting on this boat. Like, has no reason at all. He's chilling at his home. You're chilling at your house, Crystal Lake, taking a swim. Why in the what in the world made Jason board this boat? It doesn't make any sense to me. Completely out of character. But just something fun about him walking around this cruise ship, killing people randomly, smashing people with a guitar, putting hot coal in people's stomach, electrocuting people, teleporting all over the place. This movie also has to get props for the biggest example of a killer. I mean, this is such a horror cliche now. I can't say it starred in this movie, but the killer teleporting, I mean, this is the most obvious movie for teleportation I've ever seen. Jason's all over the place in this damn cruise ship. And then when you finally get to Manhattan, although it takes forever, a really great, fun last 20 minutes. I mean, everything in Manhattan is on point. The fight scene with Julius, the chasing our two heroes, like, into the diner on the subway, the interaction with those punk kids. It's just all fun stuff to me. This movie is so much fun. I understand why people don't like it, because you go in expecting Jason in Manhattan, and really it is Jason on a cruise ship. But I don't know. I have a soft spot for Jason Takes Manhattan. All right, let's get to the next one. So right here, smack dab in the middle of the list, Friday 13, 2009. Not really a remake, not really a sequel. I don't know what to call this movie, but most of the Platinum Dooms remakes and things from like 2003 to like 2012, or they tried to remake basically everything from the damn 70s, 80s, 90s, mostly unsuccessful in my opinion, with some great gems. They were 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre is fantastic. But 2009 Friday 13th, it gets a spirit of Jason right. It gets a spirit of Friday 13th right. It's what we want to see. We don't necessarily want to see him in space. We don't need him body hopping. We don't even need him on a cruise ship. At its core, we want to see him in the woods, killing unsuspecting teens. And this movie gets it right. We get a very badass Jason played by Derek Mears. One of the best portrayals of Jason. You get, in my opinion, fairly good characters. Like I like Chewie. I like it has better characters than a lot of the movies. I can say that. So, just fun death scenes. It felt modernized for the modern audience. And like I said, I think it captured the spirit of the original Friday 13 movies. I mean, compare this to the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which was a year later. This looks like the best movie ever. Compare that. So, yeah, big fan of the remake. A lot of rewatchability. I just wish that there was a follow-up. I think the thing about the remake is, as more time goes on, I think people like it more too, because it's just, there was no follow-up. It's 15 years ago. We haven't had anything since. So the appreciation for the remake, I think, grows and grows, simply because we're so thirsty for a new movie. So, okay, now let's go to number 5, which is going to be Freddy vs. Jason. Now, my partner in crime, Nick Arcana, does not like Freddy vs. Jason. I would argue that the appreciation of Freddy vs. Jason grows throughout the years, because when you judge it for what it is, which is a very hard thing to pull off, a verse movie of Freddy vs. Jason, just getting the story right there is very complicated. So we have a respectable way to bring them together. Yes, some of it doesn't make sense. Why the hell is Freddy narrating at the beginning of the movie? Who the hell is he narrating to? What is Freddy doing here? Like, I don't understand. What hell is he in, where his version of hell is basically him just reminiscing about his old days? What version of hell is Jason in here, where he's killing camp counselors? If that's his hell, does that mean that he didn't enjoy killing camp counselors? Wouldn't that be his heaven? So there's some issues with how they're brought together. And you also have probably with Laurie and Will, you have two of the most unlikable main characters right next to Tina and Michael from part 7. But man, I'll tell you what, you get to the last 30, 40 minutes of this movie, once they enter into the dream world, that initial fight between Freddy versus Jason, then coming into the real world, come on, there's not a better half an hour in the entire franchise than the last half an hour of Freddy vs. Jason. I don't believe it. I think that the last 30 minutes are so good that it elevates the entire movie into damn near horror classic categories. So yeah, Freddy vs. Jason, I think, deserves the newfound respect it's getting. I think people nostalgically, but also just realizing how hard it was and how grateful we are to have a Freddy vs. Jason movie. So yeah, good stuff here. All right, the next one, I think is very specific to me. I don't know if this movie would be as high on everybody else's list, but I have Friday 13th Part 3 at my number 4. Now, this movie, if you watch it now, you're going to see terrible, terrible 3D graphics that stand out so terribly that you're just like, whoa, should I just make fun of this movie for how bad the 3D is? But hey, at the time, it was a revolutionary technology, and you could see they were really like kind of going for it with the 3D stuff. So I'm not mad at that. It does make some of the deaths a little bit over the top, but that's okay. Um, there's something pure about Jason from the first 4 movies, especially like 2, 3, and 4. The fact that they're all connected timeline wise, the fact that you can watch them and really get the marathon feel going from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. So there's something about that. And then I don't know. I just like the execution of part 3. I like the setup with the characters. I like the establishing of the fake Crazy Ralph character, the the establishing of the fake Crazy Ralph character. You know, I have warned thee. I have warned thee. You have the classic setup of the unknowing friend group coming to the camp, or in this case, coming to Higgins Haven. I like the bikers. I like the whole subplot there. And then at the end of the movie, once Rick gets taken out in hilarious comedic fashion, I love the entire chase scene with Chris and Jason in part 3. The first 4 movies had these epic chase scenes in the last part of the movie that I just can't get enough of. It's what I miss most about old school slashers. What I felt like the new Halloween movies didn't get right. It's like we want, as slasher fans, we want an epic chase scene, and the first couple Friday 13th movies deliver that in spades. So I love that. My main complaints about the movie, very minor, really. I've talked about it before. I think Vera and Shelley should have been the main characters of this movie. I think their arc, their characters, their storyline was significantly more interesting than what was going on with Chris and Rick. Chris and Rick, I think Chris is a pretty good main female here. I don't think that Rick is really much of any kind of character. In fact, he's borderline annoying, I would say. Like, you don't really feel anything when Jason's crushing his skull in, which says a lot. So I would have liked more Vera and Shelley. Some of the reason I dig it so much nostalgically is because I like their dynamic a lot. It's like a different, unique dynamic that's really not there in most of the series. So I would have liked that. But yeah, big props for Friday 13 Part 3 overall. Just fun stuff. So, okay, so now let's get into our top 3. And at number 3 is going to be Friday 13th Part 2. Now, of course, Friday 13th, the original, was such a big cash grab and moneymaker that they had to jump into a sequel pretty quickly, which Tom Savini did not come back for because he said, there is no Jason. Jason's dead. This is stupid. There's no Jason. But Tom, I love your makeup. You were wrong. There was a Jason, and he has a sack on his head, and he has a shack in the woods, and you better not come on that shack. Even if you're a cop, you're going to die from trespassing because he's going to kill everybody. So anyways, I think that part 2 probably has, to me, the most solid sort of put together story in terms of like, okay, we get this great setup at the beginning with Alice being killed from Jason, a fantastic opening. That opening 5-10 minutes, Jason calling Alice on the phone, hanging up. So Jason's doing a lot of work here. Jason somehow stumbling into suburbia and finding Alice and killing her. Had to get revenge for his mom. Listen, he loved his mom, so had to get revenge there. So you have that great opening setup. You cut to a new group of camp counselors. And then it's just like, you know, the same setup as part 1, but I think you like the characters more here. Let's just call it for what it is. Ginny is a better, more likable, more developed main protagonist than Alice. No question in my mind. I think Kane Hodder is wrong in terms of people want to follow Tina. People would actually have loved to see Ginny come back. I think she's probably the most beloved final girl. You have her. You have Paul. You have Prankster Dude, who doesn't get his comeuppance. I would have loved to seen Prankster Dude taken out. That's one flaw of the movie. The Prankster Dude just gets off scot-free here. Not like Shelley, who got his comeuppance for being the boy who cried wolf. Prankster guy here just goes off at the bar, has a fun night, and is none the wiser to this massacre. Great chasing at the end. Jason, no mask, but Sackhead Jason is still a lot of fun. There's plenty room for Sackhead Jason. If he'd continue to Sackhead Jason, maybe wouldn't be as iconic, but still would be a great slasher for sure. Yeah, just can't say enough good things about part 2. High amount of rewatchability. I think that this is one of those movies, part 2, where in my top 3 of the movies, I would say that even though the order is sometimes different, nobody really ever disses this movie. Nobody has like a bad thing to say about this movie per se. So, all right. So top 2, it's the usual top 2, but it depends on your order. It goes back and forth. Even I switched up sometimes. But for my number 2 on my list, I'm going with the final chapter, part 4, celebrating its 40-year anniversary right now, currently. Man, what can you say about part 4, the final chapter? It transcends Jason. It is just a great slasher movie from the 80s. If you were showing, the top 5 slashers of the 80s, you'd probably want to show Final Chapter. They perfected the setup here. They've had part 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 4th time that a group of characters now have come to the camp, and Jason's going to take them out, but they feel really refined. The formula feels like it's been perfected now. We have likable characters. We're finally, from part 2, 3, and 4, we're finally getting that point of like understanding that, hey, the more likable your characters are, the better the movie is. Like, yeah, we're still going to cheer for Jason, but we want to feel bad for the characters when they die. I don't know if any movie has a better cast of characters than part 4 in terms of the series. So you have Jimbo, you have Ted, you have Sarah right there, just in our main group of teens. You have amazing characters right there. Let's see. You have Tommy Jarvis as a kid, played wonderfully by Corey Feldman. You have his older sister, Trish. You have Rob, who screams lies he's being killed, which is somewhat comical, but taken from a real life thing. I can understand the inspiration for that. And then you have Ted Booker playing Jason, probably the best version of Jason from the first 4 movies. I mean, Jason is really powerful here, really pissed off, running all over the place, busting through doors like only Jason can. Like I said, you have actual developed characters. Each character seems to have their own storyline going. It feels like it's a separate teen movie that Jason happens to come and just start wrecking shit halfway through. But it feels like if you took Jason out of it, you still have a movie here with enough characters, enough plot going on with the teens to actually make this a respectable teen movie. So I appreciate that. And just, Tom Savini's makeup here again, better than part 1, probably the best death scenes in the series overall. Yeah, just absolutely good stuff. Props to Joseph Zito, the director, who did a great job with The Prowler. I would also recommend The Prowler, and then did a great job here with Final Chapter. So, of course, that leaves only room for number 1 to be The One Who Lives, talking about Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, part 6. My favorite interpretation of Tommy Jarvis, played by Tom Matthews, who's fantastic in Return of the Living Dead, who's great hair, who's good in the new Never Hike Alone series. You have just the perfect tone from part 5, which was kind of serious and kind of oddly bland in tone, to finally bringing Jason into self-aware. We know this is a fun horror franchise. Let's make Jason the star territory. You get it right there with that James Bond opening. This movie starts off at level 10 and it doesn't slow down. Very rare do you have a movie where the opening was like pops off like that, and then the pace just stays relentless. But this movie's fun all throughout. There's very few, if any, boring parts of this movie. The characters, again, likable as hell. Megan is a great final girl. Paula's, you really feel bad for what happens to Paula. I don't know why the hell Jason was so mad at her, but Paula gets probably the most brutal death that Jason's ever handed out. Sheriff Garrett, one of the best supporting characters in the entire franchise. Someone who, he's acting like a jerk, but you kind of see where he's coming from. So it's you kind of relate to, you understand why he feels the way. He's being protective of his daughter, sacrifices himself for his daughter. Great death scene. Man, I don't know. This is like, for me, just the The one Friday 13th movie that I feel like if I had to show one movie to an outsider to introduce them to the series, like, hey, if you had to watch one Friday 13th movie, it would be Jason Lives. I think that it's accessible. It's very easy to follow. You really don't need any background on the series, and it has enough fun in the tone, but everybody can probably get on board with this movie. So, anyways, that is the list. It may change in future years as I watch the movies every single year. Will a new beginning ever move up on the list? I can't promise that, but I know that New Beginning fans probably going to be coming for my head, and that's okay. Explain to me what you love about the movie. Maybe I can come on board and see it in a different light. But until next time, you guys take care.